Now, Christy Clark isn't citing that controversy over her membership in the Conservative Party. Instead, she says her French skills are not developed enough and the leadership race will be too short to allow her to mount a successful campaign. With Clark and Champagne out, the list of contenders running is getting shorter. So far, 3 people have confirmed they will run, with Cape Breton MP Jamie Baptiste announcing his bid last night. But Chrystia Freeland is expected to announce a run within the week. Karina Gould, as Jason reported, expected to announce her candidacy this week. And Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson has said he is considering. So is former Bank of Canada and Bank of England Governor Mark Carney. Now, while Carney hasn't yet confirmed he will run for Liberal leader, he sat down for an interview with American comedian Jon Stewart on The Daily Show last night, telling Stewart that Trudeau's resignation gives the Liberal Party a chance to win the next election, and outlined what qualities he believes Trudeau's replacement will need to beat Pierre Poilievre.
Let's say the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
You sneaky, you're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
And many have noticed that sounds an awful lot like his resume.
I have not been in the government.
For more on Carney's potential run, let's bring in Liberal strategist Charles Bird. He's a principal at public affairs firm Earnscliffe Strategies in Toronto. Charles, his political aspirations have been long rumored. What do you think his chances are to win the leadership?
I think his chances are very good, especially now that Christy Clark and Francois-Philippe Champagne have decided not to run. Global Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly made a similar announcement. I thought his appearance on The Daily Show was something of a high wire act, high risk and fraught with danger. By all accounts, he pulled it off with aplomb, with great humor, and seems to have greatly bolstered his chances in the eyes of Liberals across the country.
Now, he called himself an outsider on the show. Do you think he will be seen as an outsider candidate by Liberal voters and the larger electorate? And if so, is that an advantage over Freeland or Gould?
There does need to be some degree of distancing from Prime Minister Trudeau. There's no doubt about that. The current Prime Minister's state of popularity is dangerously low. I think most people would agree. And so his ability to project himself as someone who is coming from outside the government, from not having served in cabinet, from not having served in the caucus, I think he has taken steps to demonstrate that he is a committed Liberal. He's acted as an economic advisor to the government. He was certainly front and center at the last biennial convention of the Liberal Party of Canada. And so it is a bit of a balancing act between running as an insider, but remembering that the voters who will choose the next leader of the party are in fact Liberals. And so he's got to demonstrate his bona fides in that regard as well. But I thought last night was a good start, and also the rather dramatic withdrawal of so many other candidates is beginning to set up a situation where he is emerging as not only the favorite, but the prohibitive favorite.
Now, given that the Liberals are so behind the Conservatives in the polls, does Carney's assertion that Trudeau's resignation gives the party a chance at winning the next election ring true for you?
Well, it's politics, right? And voters have a funny way of deciding what's important to them when they cast their ballot. So time will tell. There's no doubt that the current polling numbers are such that it's a daunting challenge for whoever takes on the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada. I heard one observer say that the ship has already struck the iceberg. It doesn't matter who you make captain. That said, Carney contrasts very, very effectively with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, and the extent of near hysteria on the part of Conservative commentators about Mr. Carney's appearance last night, Mr. Poilievre's constant name-calling of Mr. Carney suggests that they are worried about his emergence as a potential leader. Because remember, this is arguably the most credentialed individual to ever run for the leadership of any party in terms of having been Governor of the Bank of Canada, Governor of the Bank of England, an extremely knowledgeable and thoughtful fellow. And I think they do have Conservatives worried. But that said, it's the current polling suggests that the Conservatives enjoy a very comfortable lead.
So here's probably the biggest question. How do you think Carney would do going up against Trump?
That's a great question. That's like, how would anyone do going up against a 700-pound gorilla? I think it's interesting to think of a scenario where Carney is really alone in the field. The race right now is shaping up between himself and former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. If for some reason Chrystia Freeland were not to run, it would make it entirely possible that other candidates might decide to step aside and that Mark Carney could very well win the leadership when the cutoff for leadership candidates happens on January 23rd. And it's entirely possible in that scenario that he could be prime minister by the end of the month. And he would obviously have to throw himself into negotiations with the Americans. And even if there isn't an early call of the leadership, if the date for the big leadership vote happens on March 9th as scheduled, there's no doubt that the issue of the potential tariffs that may be imposed shortly after January 20th and the inauguration of Mr. Trump will dominate the leadership campaign. And how he positions himself in that regard really comes down to how he positions himself with Donald Trump. And that's again, a balancing act that he'll have to navigate very carefully, as will Pierre Poilievre, because it's very easy to get the shoes wrong when it comes to Canadian identity and our standing vis-a-vis not only the Americans, but a chaos agent like President Trump.
That's Liberal strategist Charles Bird. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.